Laurent Berlant described the state of impasse as a moment where existing social imaginaries and practices no longer produce the outcomes they once did. But no new imaginaries or practices have yet been created. So, yes, we are in the midst of a pandemic. That's a very obvious statement to make. And why am I repeating the obvious or saying the obvious? I think I'm trying to drive it home to myself and to everyone listening to this that we are in a truly liminal space. We are in a space between stories where we can see and feel the old world order crumbling and collapsing, and the narratives and metaphors that held that world order in place is no longer making sense. And yet we don't yet have new stories to fill the gap. We are in a space between stories. We are in an in-between space, in a liminal space. Now, human beings are not very good at staying with uncertainties. It fills us with dread, with discomfort, with an urge to just quickly get out of it as soon as possible. We do not like what makes us uncomfortable, and we look for distractions. We look for a way out. We look to see how we can stop being in this space. However, I do not think that at this point in our civilization's trajectory, that's a wise move. While the pandemic has thrown the whole world into chaos, we are seeing collapse and calamities across the globe. Collapse in societies we thought would never collapse. We have seen the economy come to a shuddering halt. Literally unimaginable a few weeks ago. We couldn't have and wouldn't have imagined that the world could come to an instant standstill like this, but it has. Which also drives home to us that what we think are unthinkable, impossible, unimaginable can also happen. And the pandemic has shown us that. Ecological crisis over the years, over decades, warnings from scientists, from communities, from many activists, from everywhere, could not make us change our behavior, could not make us rethink our socio-political and economic nexus and how that was impacting the planet and all sentient beings on it. But the pandemic has literally forced us without any choice to come to a halt. Yes, it does mean unimaginable suffering at every level, and suffering especially for the most vulnerable, the dispossessed, the disenfranchised, and the disabled, the others, the minorities, so to speak, in our societies, in all our societies, which also tells us how fragile, frail, non-resilient our societies have become, our communities have become, our political structures and processes have become. How did we arrive at this juncture where an invisible virus have thrown a global, connected, networked, so-called technologically advanced world into chaos? The technology that we boasted of, the artificial intelligence, the robotics, the 3D printing, the driverless cars, the travel into space, and whatever else we have developed so far, seem to be have not been able to come up with any innovative breakthroughs to help us handle this pandemic. So technology have failed us, Big data, big oil, big pharma, and all the big so-called saviors where we have poured our taxpayers' money into have failed us. It is compassion and high touch that is saving the day. Compassion of the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare workers, the grocery store, the storekeepers, the every day-to-day work that is keeping the world rolling have not been the work we have most valued in society. And how has that happened? How did we arrive here? How did we come to a point where extractive, exploitative, exclusive economy that had no contributive factor to the well-being and welfare and happiness and abundance and joy of people took over our mindset, our behaviors, our beliefs, our value systems, to the point where we lost track of where we were going, to the point where our civilization's trajectory have brought us to an edge of, literally to the brink of a cliff, to the verge of collapse, and we are just one step short of falling over. Or maybe we have fallen over already, as the pandemic is showing us. So how do we reimagine, reinvent, rethink, re-envision a different world, a thrivable world for all? What are the questions that we can ask ourselves as citizens, as leaders, as members of communities, as members of societies, as members of the human race, of human species on this planet, our only home? What questions should we be asking ourselves now that can help us to envision a different future, that can help us to re-articulate our stories, to rethink our narratives and metaphors, to become imaginal cells and compasses that lead us into a different future?